So welcome. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We're real excited about today because we're going to share a lot of good work that has been done by a very committed team, and as well as committed individuals that continue to move forward with us looking at Beacon and where we're going and how we're taking Beacon to our next chapter. Um, I want to let you know that today we also have on the call, besides MAC members, Tim and Andrea Bauer, if they can just raise their hands, and you also see their names. They are from Bauer Management Services, and they're the team that will be taking transitioning to from Alta Management and Zoe. So they're joining us to get caught up, and we'll have ample time in the next couple of weeks for us to get to know them better. Today's meeting is going to have two parts. The first part's going to have Paul Coolidge and Pat Schaefer, who have been working with the Competitive Insights team to look at both the benchmarking information that we got, and then what came out of that was the need for us to create our first Beacon mission, vision, strategic pillars, and we've had value prop before, but a new value proposition. The second part of the meeting will then be with Daphne Bangery, who will be sharing the process that we're going to be looking forward to tackle some of the first changes that we're going to be looking at that came out of some of the key insights and that are key to us meeting our members' needs and what we've found from some of the information that we've been doing. And we'll continue to get more information as to how to meet members' needs with the resources and the value that Beacon brings to the table. So I mentioned that it's a new mission because Beacon, until this process happened, had been using Chris Pavlidis's vision and the goals that he had from starting the organization over 20 years ago, and never had a true mission. There is a placeholder of a mission on the website that was launched about 18 months ago, but that was put on there by our web designer, not by any process that was engaging Beacon members or the leadership to actually define what it is that we believe is the Beacon, the special sauce, as Charlie Timmons would say, for the Beacon community. With that, I want to turn it over to Pat and to Paul to share some exciting information.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to kick it off, but Pat and I will be jointly talking about the work and the competitive insights team. So thank you. And as Georgine mentioned, we're very excited to be talking about this because it's something that I think the organization has needed for a long time. So we think it's a good strategic thing to be beginning the year with. And I think with a lot of the changes that are happening, it's going to be a great process for not only the board, but to really integrate it throughout all of the committees into the subgroups. So, Pat, if you go to the next slide, we every project needs a good project name. So the group had voted on Beacon Metamorphosis because we really viewed this as a way that we are transforming and changing the shape of Beacon. So that hence the name of the of the team that we wanted to share because we really look at it as that big of a picture that it's a metamorphosis kind of deal. When you're talking about mission, vision, strategic pillars, value proposition, they are the grounding and the foundation of any organization. Next slide. This is the purpose of the meeting from Pat and I's point. As mentioned, there's really two parts of the meeting today, but for the first half that Pat and I are doing, we have what we call our MAC Ask, because we really need your help. We don't want to just come out with a mission, vision, value prop, put it on a website and say, okay, work done, go on to the next thing. To really have a successful mission, vision, value prop, it needs to be integrated into the organization. And so that's what Pat and I are going to be talking about over the next several slides. And that's going to be our MAC Ask towards the end of it. But each committee and subgroup does have a role to play. There are next steps for all of you. And what we're going to be doing today is informing you, educating, engaging, and hopefully empowering. And as this gets integrated over the next several months and quarters, as I said, every group and every subgroup and every committee has a role to play. So the table of contents, what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to give a little bit of background about the Competitive Insights team. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of you probably have not heard about it. It's probably really been more at the Beacon level, at the board level, and I think the membership committee's gotten some updates, but most people have not heard about it. So I'm going to go a little bit of background, but not too much. Then Pat's going to share with you the mission, the vision, the pillars, and the value prop. And by the way, if you have questions along the way, feel free to unmute and ask your question. We've also saved times for questions at the end, but if you don't think it's appropriate to save till the end, you want to ask it, please feel free to ask it. We'll talk about our case for change and then the rollout plan. But that's kind of the agenda for the first half of the call, what Pat and I are going to be doing. So the next slide just gives a little bit of background on the Competitive Insights team. In Q2 of last year, so almost 12 months ago, there was a group of members from the membership committee that made a proposal to the board of directors of Beacon about engaging an outside research company to do a more detailed competitive research project. It would have been very detailed and very expensive, and the board came back to us and said, it'd be wonderful to have this great competitive insight, but can we do it cheaper and faster? And so they challenged this group of members from the membership committee to identify who are some of the leading Philadelphia networking groups that were successful during COVID, who grew during COVID, and let's go out and find their insights. What did they do? Why are they growing? And what's their secret sauce? And so by using the Philadelphia Business Journal that every year has their power list that tracks the size of all sorts of organizations, but networking groups is one of those, and Beacon is always listed, we identified 5 or 6 key networking groups that we wanted to target. And we then used the Beacon board to get entry into the key leaders in each of those groups and came up with a detailed interview list of questions, and we interviewed them. And from that, we came up with some key insights. There were 15 total insights. We then presented this to the board, and then on the second bullet point in Q3 of 24, the board authorized the creation of a competitive insights team to act upon those insights. And I want to acknowledge those people there on on these bullet points here. Several of them are on the call. Nella's on the call. Kathleen's on the call. Tom Koya might be on the call. I can't see all the names right now. But I do want to acknowledge that these people gave of their time in Q3 and Q4. And what they did was we reviewed all the insights from all of these interviews and decided that of the 15 insights we should act upon, the first one we should go after is mission vision. Because as Georgine mentioned, we didn't really have one. And so the board approved this, that we would start with that. Pat Schaefer joined our team as acting as our mission vision facilitator. And a big thanks to Pat, who will be talking next, who's a former board member and really has been very active in a number of committees. But she has some expertise on creating mission vision value props. And so she facilitated with our team in the creation of that. So that's a little bit of background about how we got here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat.
Thanks, Paul. He gives me way too much credit, by the way. This was a team, like I was a dream team. They were so easy to work with. They were able to disagree with one another and then come back together in agreement. They were great. So what you're going to see next is the product of that group. And I was just orchestrating it with my baton or whatever. So the first thing that we worked on was the mission statement. And what the team came up with was that Beacon brings leaders together through meaningful connections, cutting-edge programming, and self-directed development opportunities. We create a supportive community where members can grow, refine their leadership skills, and expand their networks, all while building lasting relationships that inspire and empower them to thrive. So the team, I think, really captured the essence of Beacon here and what makes us who we are, and gives us real purpose. And then we looked at the vision. And we looked at a lot of vision statements, and they were all these really crisp things. And we said, we need something really crisp. And so this was what the team came up with: the go-to community where leaders make meaningful connections. We're not there yet, but that's where we're headed the next 3 to 5 years. So the mission is our purpose. The vision is where we see us going. And then the next thing the team worked on were the what we called the strategic pillars, going back to that competitive analysis, looking at the 15 key insights that came out of that, and saying, what are the things that are most important to us that we need to work on? So that's what the strategic pillars are all about. They really boiled it down to two biggies. One is to learn from and adapt to intergenerational needs and wants. One of the ways we want to expand and diversify our membership is by bringing in emerging leaders. It's succession planning, if you will. It will sustain the organization into the future. And then the other, which we think is very important, is to leverage our internal capabilities, which we think are extremely strong, and our expertise, which is diverse and strong, and external factors to drive our mission and vision forward. And then, having created those two strategic pillars, the team looked at, well, what are the key things that we can do? What are the key actions that we might take? And again, these are at a very high level. So there will be a lot of work left to do in terms of bringing these down to some real tactics. But the first was to implement an information gathering strategy, something that's ongoing, something that keeps us in touch with members and with prospective members to understand what it is they need from us and how we can add value. And then the other one was to develop and implement a new organizational model, a new organizational structure, and an operating model that will help us leverage our capabilities and use the external factors to drive our mission and vision forward. That's really important. We're no longer a huge organization. We no longer have 1,200 members. So we need to resize our organization structure and our operating model to fit that. And that's what one of the things that the Bowers are going to be helping us with. The next is to adopt an experimentation mindset. We heard this from a lot of our competitors. Try new things, see what works. If it works and it needs a little tweaking, tweak it and roll it out again. If it's not working at all, get rid of it and try something new. So we want that experimental mindset to permeate everything we do in the organization. We also want to deliver participative in-person and virtual meeting formats. Again, our competitors are engaging. One of the things that one of them said, and Paul and I really love this, is we want to make everyone an athlete, not a spectator in our events. And we'll do that by making them more participative and engaging. We want to vary in-person meeting locations and venues. We've gotten a lot of feedback that we tend to go to the same places all the time, and they're easy for some people to get to and a nightmare for others to get to. So we want to look at moving our meetings around so that we can meet our members where they are, literally in their geographic areas. And then last but certainly not least is to develop and implement a social media strategy as a primary tool to acquire new members and engage all of our members. We've been using LinkedIn. We want to look at expanding that to other social media platforms, but also using LinkedIn because we know a lot of our members use that. But we really need to stop being the best kept secret around and really get our message out there. So I'll stop there and ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Crickets. Okay, hearing none.
It's a lot to absorb in one slide.
It is a lot to absorb in one slide,
Yeah,
and we will make sure that it gets reinforced over and over again. Don't worry about that.
And we should say, you know, as we were going along the journey, we shared this with the board at multiple points, and this was all approved by the board.
Yes.
So that we weren't acting as a rogue committee.
In the final stages, Grimm and Grove, who offered to help us, or who is working with us on communication, they actually worked with the team to finalize it.
Yeah, thank you, Georgine. They were instrumental in helping us get the right wording and really, you know, get across who we are to people who don't know us very well.
And I do want to just point something here. Just, you know, look at these strategic pillars because, as Pat very eloquently said, you know, these are the important things that we're going to be working on in 2025 and beyond. And I think as MAC members, we all run committees or subgroups. And so not that we expect you to be working on all of these, there's a lot of things, but there should be something at least within these strategic pillars that fits within the action plan for your group in 2025. It might be experimentation mindset. It might be about intergenerational, but look at these, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but these pillars are really what, we're going to be talking about with each of these committees and subgroups to act upon and hopefully, engage with this year.
The one thing I don't notice, and maybe that's going to come later, I see the definition of members is just leaders. Doesn't mention geography, doesn't mention levels or anything. Is there a vision for that end of things too?
Yes. And you'll see a little bit of that in our value proposition. But what we started with was, something called a value proposition canvas. And one of the things we looked at is who are our members? Who is our target audience? So we really relied back on our membership criteria, which we can certainly share with all of you. It's on the website, but it is, it starts with C-level executives, and it runs all the way through business owners, through people in transition, which I know is important to you, John, with your job search and career development group, and to emerging leaders, some of the younger folks who are coming up through the ranks. So yes, we've looked at that. We know who we are in terms of geography for in-person events. Kind of, we're in our area, we're in our greater Philadelphia metro area, but we've also expanded. We have quite a few, and I know Ed Henkler's with us. We have quite a few people outside the area now. Ed lives in North Carolina, and we've got another couple of members down there. So we are expanding geographically thanks to our ability to do virtual and hybrid programming. So we have looked at all of that. We've got all of that kind of detail behind the scenes. Happy to share it sometime after the meeting, but we didn't want to kind of drag people through all of that detail at this point.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for your question.
Deborah Butler, who was on the Competitive Insights team, is in North Carolina?
Yeah.
She's in Charlotte, and I'm
Charlotte.
in South Carolina.
So I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry, Ed. I always get the North and the South mixed up.
They do down here too.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, suggestions on the strategic pillars, mission, or vision? Okay. I want to take you then to our value proposition. Again, as Paul said, this has been approved by the board of directors, but it was pulled together by our Competitive Insights team and with a lot of input from G&G on this. And our value proposition is helping high-achieving professionals, from experienced executives to rising leaders, connect and grow through meaningful relationships and innovative programs within a community of members who share a generosity of spirit. And those last few words, we think are the key. What makes Beacon really different from other membership organizations is the fact that we are so oriented to helping one another. And one of the first things that we say to people when we meet them is, what can I do to help you? So we wanted to make sure that that came through loud and strong. John, back to your question, that we've summarized our target membership in the words experienced executives to rising leaders. Now, there's a lot of stuff in between there, but we wanted to show that there is a spectrum of membership. So that is our value proposition. We'll be working on talking points, sort of the building blocks, which Larry and Neil and a number of other people had worked on before. We'll be kind of revising those to fit this new value proposition so that our members have really easy talking points, regardless of who they're talking to about membership, whether it's somebody in transition, a business owner, somebody in a corporate seat. They'll have some talking points that they can use to illustrate the value that Beacon could bring to them. So that is it. I will stop again for questions, comments.
So I'm kind of curious, connect and grow. What would be the definition of grow? What does that mean to the group?
So it really, I think what the team was thinking about was professional and personal growth of our members. So it is the ability to interact with other people, learn from other people, to attend events that are aimed at education and information. So it's really personal and professional growth for our members, as opposed to growing the organization.
Okay, thank
We
you.
want to do that too, but this was really aimed at what's the value that we're delivering to our members. Other questions, comments? Okay, Paul, I will turn it back over to
Great.
you.
Thank you. So I wanted to present this slide, and you're actually going to see it in the second half of this meeting as well. It's a new kind of, like say, prototype of for people that are working in change within Beacon. So you may see this format not only later this afternoon, but in your future. And it's when you make a change, why do you change? What will change? How will it change? And who will be changing? And so we're using this as an example to kind of introduce the slide, but also how we kind of looked at it with this mission, vision, strategic pillars, and value prop. Why we're changing is because we want to better align Beacon. And we really feel that this helps our members connect and grow and all that information, that there's a lot of value for Beacon. What will change? We have the new value proposition, the new mission statement, the new vision statement. How it will change? It'll change through our business structure and operations and through MAC that we'll be talking about in the next couple of slides. And who will the change impact? It should impact really everyone in the organization. Everyone should be impacted by the mission vision. So Delphani, who's going to be talking next in the second half of the hour, will really go through this in much more detail and how this kind of fits into change agents. But I wanted to just kind of introduce it here and why we think this is important, because it kind of states why we're changing and what will change and how we'll change. Next slide. So we have a MAC ask. All of you on this call are part of the MAC, and we have an ask for you. We would like for every committee and subgroup, and that's who's in the MAC. If you're on the MAC, you're either running a committee or you're running a subgroup. We would like every one of them to designate a change champion, to pick someone on your group or committee to be the change champion. And what we're going to do as part of Pat and our team, we will train and educate this champion. We'll make sure that they present this at your group. And I'm willing to go along, and if you need another person as backup to be at that meeting. And the champions will work with their group to develop a list of changes that they're going to make to embrace the new strategic pillars. How do you execute in support of this? What is the so what for your group or your committee? And as I go back to something I said at the very beginning, if we create a mission, vision, value prop, and pillars, and we do nothing with it, all we do is put it on a website, we have failed. The only way that we succeed is if it's integrated within the organization, so that each committee looks at those pillars, which is the big key next steps, and figure out which of those, it will not be all of them, that's too many for any committee or subgroup, but which of those they can act upon. And then our hope is at a later MAC meeting, we're going to regroup and we're going to review how the different groups and committees have altered their 2025 plans to integrate the mission, vision, and value prop. So the key next step is to designate a champion who on your committee or subgroup can help activate against this new mission, vision, strategic pillars, and then share it with them at a meeting, and then think about that third bullet point. What are we going to be doing differently? What's the so what? Next slide. I wanted to share an example, and this is from the membership committee. Disregard the bottom 2/3 of the slide. This is very specific to the membership committee, but I wanted to show you what the membership committee did. We presented to them the mission, the vision, the strategic pillars, and they thought 4 of them were really important for the 2025 plan for the membership committee. So they picked on those strategic pillars, the learning from and adapting intergenerational needs, developing and implementing a new organizational structure and operating model, that develop an information gathering strategy and adopt an experimental mindset. And this then below that, and again, I'm not going to read those below bullet points, that is how they're going to be acting. These are the initiatives we're doing in 2025 on a membership committee. And I happen to be chair of the membership committee, so this is my workload for Beacon in 2025. But we picked individual pillars. These are not all the pillars. It's just a few of them, but we thought these were the most applicable to the membership committee, and then we memorialized it, and this is how we're going to be grading ourselves in 2025. These are the projects and work that we're going to be doing in 2025, and this connects it back to the pillars. So this may be one way that your committee or subgroup could do it. You can look at the pillars, decide which ones are most appropriate for your group, and then there's some actions that you're doing in 2025 or beyond that actually empowers and actually becomes your action plan. So this is the action plan for membership committee. And we're happy to share this deck afterwards so you can look at it. Now, the rollout for the new mission, vision, value prop, what does that look like? Well, there's going to be an email with a video going out to all members next week. We're also having a kickoff for all Beacon members at our first Friday forum, which is Friday, March 7th at noon. So these are the first two immediate ways next week that all members of Beacon are going to be made aware of a new mission, vision, strategic pillars, and value prop through the email and through the kickoff meeting. In addition, they'll be coming down the pike a 2-minute review at the beginning of each meeting. So at the start of each meeting, we're going to be sharing this with members so that the more meetings people attend, the more that they'll be seeing it. There'll be a social media rollout via LinkedIn, which is our primary tool we use. Neil Perry is working on a whole strategic group of videos. There's a whole video series that are going to be rolled out over the next several months that are going to tie into the mission, vision, and pillars. And then we're going to also be updating the website, the rolling banner and certain pages on the website so that you won't see what's currently on there. You'll see this new version. There'll be other things in addition, but these are kind of the immediate things happening. So there is a rollout. We need to make sure every member hears about it. Obviously, if a member is part of a committee or subgroup, they're going to be hearing about it through their change champion as well as you designate someone to be that. So there should be lots of opportunities to get this ingrained within the system. Next slide.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Are you, oh, I see. So never mind, I have the answer.
Okay. I love when that happens. So I'm going back to that Mac Ask slide that I started, but I'm going to talk about it in a little more detail. You know, we're asking for your help. That's hence the 30 minutes that we're on the call. There is this new mission, vision, value prop, and we'll share the deck so you all get a copy of it. We want each committee and subcommittee to have a role. And what we're really thinking, that last bullet point, we'd like for each of the subgroups and committees to designate a change champion and give me their name. I will then work with them. We want to contact them so that it's presented at your committee and so that we get some action steps for the group and the subgroup. So the key next step is designate someone and give me their name. And if you go to the next slide, if you don't know how to contact me, although you can do it through Beacon, Pat and I wanted to share our information. If you think of a question tonight, tomorrow, Monday morning, give us a call, either Pat or I, or send us an email. But we should be your key people to contact regarding all this new information. So any questions? So as I said, the key next step, we will share this deck. And if we'd love if when you get it, if you could reply back to us when you think about who would be your change champion for this within your group or subcommittee.
And I would just say, Paul, that there's a lot of detail in the appendix
Yes.
that backs up all of this.
So when you get that, feel free to review.